Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Akmal bin Muhammad Yusri, and I am here to introduce our group, which is a group of 5, which is me, Akmal Hairi, Mazlan, Fikri, and Hafiz. Today we would like to talk about the Hibah, the application of Hibah in Islamic banking in Malaysia. So I will start for the introduction.
Okay, as you can see here, we would like to start at the introduction, which is Islamic banking is a new event in the market that surprised large numbers of observers because of their benefits and advantages. The general banking system is Islamized based on the relevant Sharia and Islamic principles. Islamic banking consists of banking products such as mudarabah, wadi'ah, musyarakah, ijarah, and takaful. Mudarabah is a short-term Islamic contract that provides profit or loss sharing, while wadi'ah is a contract of keeping the depositor's property safe under the Sharia law, either in a short term or in a long term. Musyarakah is a kind of partnership that joins together to achieve the objective of the undertaking business based on the principles of Sharia. The ijarah contract works similarly to a traditional lease but yet with no interest. Takaful is the same as insurance, yet it is based on Sharia law. Islamic banking system is a network that highlights justice as its main objective. To achieve it, they prohibited riba. They're lending the money to the customer with unreasoned high interest rates. So consequently, Islamic banking institutions have used Islamic financial instruments such as Al-Tawarruq and Al-Inah since decades. Islamic researchers discourse that Al-Tawarruq and Al-Inah are still considered as the involvement in element of urush. So as you can see here, as a result, Hibah system was introduced as an alternative system to replace Al-Tawarruq and Al-Inah system. Hibah is an Arabic word that comes from the word wahaba, which means tabarru', or giving without expecting any return. Hadith riwayat al-Bukhari, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, "You give each other gifts, you love each other. Gift giving can bring the sense of affections to others and ourselves." So as you can see here, there are two types of hibah. It is general hibah and specific hibah. To differentiate it is easy. It refers to the existence of akad in a contract, which only specific hibah have the akad. As for the information, hibah is encouraged in Islam and it cannot be cancelled after al-qab. What is al-qab? Al-qab can be defined as an action of the acceptance to receive the gifts or hibah and to be control of that goods given by the giver and makes it as their own property. However, there is an exception to cancel hibah whereby it involves a father to his children or a grandfather to his grandchild or grandchildren. So apart from that, need to be followed by the 7 specific characteristics to make it concluded. A contract of grant of property to a party. Property is ain property, which is tangible, not a debt or merely a benefit. Hibah is made without any consideration, tengok what? And hibah takes effect when the donor is still alive. Made voluntarily without compulsion or influence. Hibah is not intended to reward or glorify a person. And hibah is not completed and enforceable before possession by the recipient. In Malaysia, the reality of hibah is it involves the document of hibah. This documentation is a special procedure that implemented by the current giver or the people who give the hibah. According to the CIMB Islamic Bank, Berhad and LCL Corp Berhad and other cases, when the judge has stated that hibah is transferring an own asset without any returns of the current giver. Those assets transferred through the document of hibah that is named as hibah letter or grant letter. This document should ensure that the asset is given to the selected people without any possible getting object by any hires. According to the purvey contained in Islamic religious law of Malaysia, there are three different terms to describe hibah: alang hayat, gift and hibah. Alang hayat is used in Selangor, Melaka, Pulau Pinang, Johor, Perak, Kedah, Terengganu, Sabah dan Sarawak. While hibah is used by Negeri Sembilan and gift is used by Pahang and Perlis.
Now I will pass the presentation to Mazlan, which he will present about the application of Hibah in Malaysia.
My name is Muhammad Mazlan bin Ambilin. My matrix number 2019401034. I'm from CTU351-4A1. Next, the application of Hibah principle in Malaysia. The implementation of Hibah is as a supporting principle to the Islamic activities in Islamic banking in Malaysia. The transfer from the original Hibah to the current implementation of Hibah will ensure that charitable act will not be affected. There are four applications of Hibah as a supporting contract in Islamic bank in Malaysia, which is Wadiah Yad Damanah, Saving Account, Al-Ijarah Tumma Al-Bait, ITAB, Card Contract, and Conditional Hibah, Hibah Mu'allaqah. Hibah can be an instrument that can be an attraction to the certain product offered in Islamic banking, or better known as a selling point in business. Additionally, consumer will be more consistent in their financing payments due to the concept of Hibah being an initiative and support to them. Furthermore, the principle of Hibah is widely used by financial institutions to provide compensation or payment to the customers. As a result, applying the concept of Hibah to such conditions that cannot be resolved by muawadat transactions or bilateral contract can be covered by Hibah. Hence, the principle of Hibah is tabarruk in nature, where the contribution or discretionary grant from the bank which caused the principle is not given emphasis because Islamic banking is for profit. In principle, the Sharia Advisory Council of Bank Negara Malaysia (SSCBNM) has authorized the use of Hibah as a financial instrument under the Bank Negara Malaysia policy document on Hibah. According to the policy, the act of giving Hibah is always at the discretion of the Islamic financial institution, but it must be based on the strict Sharia requirement. The Sharia Advisory Council of Bank Negara Malaysia is central to the Islamic banking in Malaysia in conducting banking activities and is bound by the decision of Sharia Advisory Council. As a result, the decision of the Sharia Advisory Council is binding on the bank and must be accepted by the banking institution where the decision of the form of prohibition is contrary to the Islamic principles and does not comply with the structure of product. Thus, bank cannot violate the decision issued by them. However, the structure that follow the principles of Sharia can be applied in the product by the bank and not bound by any decision as long as it does not violate the Islamic principles. They have the authority to make decisions that have never been made by the Sharia Advisory Council Bank Negara Malaysia in the form of Sharia product operation in their respective banks. There are several integration of Hibah in various products, one of which is Wadiah. Wadiah, or also known as a saving account, is one of the products that is applied with a Hibah in a Malaysian banking institutions. This concept and practice adopted by the bank is when the depositors, which is the customer, trust the bank as the custodian of their property to ensure that the goods are safe from all damage, theft, and destructions. The property kept by the customer to the bank is a form of guarantee from the bank to the customer and is not a transfer of ownership. The bank has a responsibility to ensure that the property of money is in good control as the money is still owned by the depositors. In addition, the practice makes a form of saving and security, where in the contract of Wadiah is added the phrase Yad Damanah. The bank used the principle of Hibah in carrying out its activities in the product of Wadiah Yad Damanah to attract customers so that they use the facilities provided by the bank, where the customers save their money into Islamic bank accounts, such as saving accounts. The bank will provide dividends, gifts, and consolation to the customers on their savings. The payment of these dividends is based on discretionary discussion from the bank in determining the percentage and amount. In addition, the savings kept in the bank will be used by the bank with the permission of the customers to make a profit. Therefore, the bank will fully benefit from the bank's use of the customer's savings. However, the bank will provide Hibah or known as a gift to customers part of the profits at the discretion of the bank itself. Next, Hibah in car financings. As we know, every adult has debts like loans from banks for car payments or personal loans. With the Hibah, it can help the beneficiary to settle the debts to prevent the car being towed and prevent the beneficiary from having to bear the burden of the debt because family members will be responsible for the debts when the debtor dies. Thus, Hibah can also be applied to protect loans. Customers are encouraged to take a Hibah to cover the loan amount within a certain period of time, such as 10 to 20 years. By using absolute assignment, debts or loans can be paid directly to banking institutions such as car financing. Lastly, Hibah in Takaful. Hibah Takaful is the provision of compensation to the beneficiary of the Takaful policyholder when the Takaful policyholders die. It will be done directly by Hibah. Among the advantages of this Hibah Takaful process is that the Takaful money is directly according to the Hibah contract and not according to Faraid. In fact, the process is faster as it only takes 7 until 30 days to be accepted by the beneficiary. Thus, the beneficiary who received the money can cover their daily expenses as usual. However, the disadvantages of this Takaful Hibah is the compensation money will not be given to the beneficiary who suffers from permanent disability because it is believed that he cannot manage the money due to his permanent disability and the money will go directly to the Takaful policyholder. Another disadvantage is that when the compensation money is received by the beneficiary, it is feared that the beneficiary will not pay all the debts of the Takaful policyholder and the compensation money will run out quickly.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fikri Izrin bin Rosli and I'm from BA113A5. So today I would like to talk about the Sharia of Hibah, CTU351 by Muhammad Fikri Izrin bin Rosli. So today we like to talk about the Sharia of Hibah first. So what is Sharia of Hibah? Sharia of Hibah or the Hibah is referred to gift in form of intangible or indeed such as a gift or charitable contribution. The specific inherent nature of the Hibah contracts is the unilateral transfer of ownership of the Hibah asset from the donor, which is Al-Wahid, and Doni, which is Al-Mawhub Lahu, without any consideration or reward as return. So, the specific inherent in Hibah tells that the donor or Al-Wahid give the property in form of intangible to the Doni, which is Al-Mahub Lahu, without asking for the consideration or reward as his return. So, as per Sharia, Hibah is an agreement or an arrangement that includes the voluntary transfer of an individual's belongings to another individual over the course of the narrative for no transaction fee. So, as I mentioned earlier in Hibah, so as per Sharia, the Hibah is an arrangement that includes voluntary transfer, which is donor or al-wahid, to individuals' belongings to another individual, which is al-mahub lahu, over the course of the narrative for no transaction fee, which is they made the hibah, the transaction, without any charges. So the grant of property from one party to another without any reimbursement during life, willingly, without seeking forward in the future of or glorify anyone using ijab and kabul or anything similar. So now we move on to the nature of hibah. So nature of hibah is a form of beneficial agreement, tabarru, where the intrinsic essence of a hibah is the urequated transfer of ownership of a hibah asset from a donor and donor itself. So as I mentioned in the hibah, so hibah is a form of beneficial agreement, which is tabaru. That essence of hibah is a unequated transfer of ownership of hibah asset from a donor and donor itself. So we know the nature of hibah is the beneficial agreement or tabaru. So therefore, there are four concepts in nature of hibah, which is number one, the grantor or penghibah, and the Arabic words called al-wahib. So what is al-wahib? Al-wahib, where the grantor or the penghibah must be a competent individual with perfect intelligence, probity, and maturity or rushd. He or she must be the owner of the donated item, which is mean the grantor itself must have fully power of the item that going to be hibah. Since the property owner has complete control over his property, hibah can be made at any time and to anyone he wants, including non-Muslim, as long as they does not violate Islamic law. So in this case, the grantor or al-wahib have uh, a rights or power that he can decide anytime to anyone that he wants to give the hibah, including non-Muslim, but as long as they does not violate the Islamic law. So next, number two is grant recipient or al-mahub lahu, which is the receiver of hibah. So let's talk about it. As the hibah can be given to anyone, both Muslim and non-Muslim, as long as the recipient has the right to own land, whether mukallaf or non-mukallaf. So in this sentence, which means the hibah can be given to anyone by both Muslim and non-Muslim. But as long as the recipient has right own the land, whether mukallaf or non-mukallaf, which is the recipient also have a right, or he or she that has been decided by the grantor to receive the hibah, whether it's mukallaf or non-mukallaf. If the hibah recipient is unable to accept the hibah property, which is because he has not reached puberty or disabled, the wali or trustee will accept it on his behalf. So in this case, if the grant receiver is unable to accept the hibah property due to the problems such as not reached puberty or disabled, the wali or trustee can take the hibah or accept the hibah by on his behalf or the recipient itself. So number three is a good property or al-mahub, which is the good that going to be hibah. So whether the goods or property must belongs to the grantor and also be assignable and exist and be included to the grant agreement. So the goods or property which is in hibah or al-mahub must belong to the grantor, as I already mentioned in the uh, number one of the nature of hibah that tells about the grantor. The goods must be belong to the grantor and it also be assignable and exist during the grant agreement. So the goods is also must fulfill the requirement such as halal and has a good value according to the Islamic law, where the goods itself that going to be a hibah must be halal and have a good value, which is it has some value according to the Islamic law that to be give to the grant recipient or al-mahub lahu. Last but not least is sigha or ijab and kabul. Ijab and kabul is a word or deed that carries the sense of giving and receiving hibah, where there is a relation between ijab and kabul, and it is not subject to any condition or any time constraints. So ijab and kabul is a word that carries the sense of giving and receiving, which is mean the ijab and kabul must have during the agreement of the hibah to be an acceptance, and it is not subject to any condition or any time, which is mean ijab and kabul is not become specific in any condition, but it can be freely on any time constraints. So now we move on to the last section, which is the propagation issue of hibah. So the several issues that concerning gift that may causing consternation in Muslim society, one of which is the issue of gift revocation, because there are no specific laws governing gift, especially in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, there are no specific laws that related to the provocation issue of hibah, where according to the several research that has been done, the majority of Muslim jurists conclude that when the receiver keeps the gift, the contract of gift is complete and successful, which is mean when the grantor give the hibah to the receiver during the agreement, and the receiver keeps the gift, the contract of the gift is complete and successful. In the case of a gift from father to his children, where the donor has the right to cancel his gift if the recipient does not have any evidence in acceptance, which is mean the case of between father and children, where the father or the donor has the right to cancel his gift, which is mean he can cancel his gift to his sons if his sons or the recipient does not have evidence in acceptance. According to the Hanafi, Imami, and Zaidi schools of philosophy, the donor of the gift has no issue when it's come to revoke, and despite the keeping if one of the conditions that prohibit the gift from being withdrawn is not met. So, according to the Hanafi, Imami, and Zaidi schools, their opinion, if donor gift the donor gift has no issue when it's come to revoke, and despite the keeping if one of the conditions, which is the provocation issue that prohibit the gift from being withdrawn, is not met. So that is the issue of provocation of hibah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Sarah Zizi and fellow friends. My name is Mama Akmal Hairi bin Mahazir. So today I will present about revocation of hibah. First of all, once a hibah is made, it is definitive and irreversible under Muslim law. In other words, the donor cannot take it back from the donee. Gift under Muslim law is called hibah. It means declaration by donor to the donee that he or she is giving his or her property to the donee without anything in return. Although there is a tradition that indicates that the Prophet was against the revocation of hibah, the Muslim law has reached the subject of revocability of gift from several perspectives. It is well established and developed rule of Muslim law that all voluntary transactions, including gifts, are revocable. Revocation of hibah means taking your thing back which you have gifted. Revocation of hibah is also divided into two categories by Muslim law, which are revocation of hibah before delivery of possession and revocation of hibah after delivery of possession. The first category of revocation of hibah is revocation before delivery of possession. Under Muslim law, hibah are revocable before the delivery of possession is given to the donee. The donor can revoke the gift if it is not gone into the possession of the donee. The truth would be that no hibah is complete until the delivery of possession is completed. Thus, it is apparent that if the delivery of possession has not been made or transferred, the hibah is unfinished and will not be legitimate until the delivery of possession is made to the donee, whether or not it is revoked. The revocation of hibah merely means that the donor has changed his mind and does not want to complete it by the delivery of possession. For revocation of hibah, no order of court is necessary. As a result, a donor may retain the item he has given before the donee receive ownership. Other than that, there is revocation of hibah after delivery of possession. A donor's declaration of revocation, the filing of a lawsuit, or any other action is insufficient to revoke a hibah. Until a court of law issues an order cancelling the hibah, the donee is entitled to use the property in any manner. He can even also alienate it. It seems that once delivery of possession is done, all the gift after delivery of possession can be revoked with the consent of the donee. The donor's right to revoke a hibah is a personal issue, and a gift cannot be cancelled by his or her descendants following his or her death. Hibah also not be revoked after the death of the donee. According to Hanafi Madhab, a gift can be revoked even after the delivery of possession, when the gift is made by one spouse to another. Next, when the donor and the donee are related within the prohibited stages, or when the donee or the donor is dead. Furthermore, a hibah made to a spouse is revocable, and a hibah delivered to a relative is removable, whether it is within the forbidden categories or otherwise.
There are 4 products of hibah as a supporting contract in Islamic banks in Malaysia, which is Wadi'ah Yad Damanah, saving account, Al-Ijarah Thumma Al-Bay, ITAB, Qard, contract and condition Al-Hibah. Islamic banks in Malaysia is Wadi'ah Yad Damanah, saving account. Wadi'ah Ad-Damanah is the combination of Daman, guarantee, and Wadi'ah, safekeeping. The safekeeper has the right to exchange or use the deposit capital for some other purpose. The safekeeper is also entitled to take full advantage of the assets used and is often solely responsible for any harm. In Malaysia, Islamic banks give hibah to Wadi'ah depositor as a token of appreciation for their contribution to the 5 organizations. This hibah is acceptable if the contract process does not resemble that of a Wadi'ah deposit contract. Following that, Al-Ijarah Thumma Al-Bay, which is ITAB. Al-Ijarah is defined as a contract for the control of a specific utility service in exchange for a monetary appointment. It is the sale of profit, use, or feature for a price that can be fixed or variable. The core objective of Al-Ijarah is to profit from it rather to own it. ITAB are also known as Al-Ijarah Waqtina or Al-Ijarah Al-Muntahiyah bi Al-Tamlik in Malaysia. Hibah in Al-Ijarah Thumma Al-Bay contract is one of the incentives offered by Islamic banks in Malaysia to customers who pay their monthly rent based on the prescribed schedule. During the first year, they need to make monthly rent payments without interruption. Then 1% of the investment will be credited to the eligible customer account on the 30th month.
Assalamualaikum to Sir Razizi and my fellow friends. Okay, my name is Muhammad Hafiz bin Ismail. So, today I will present about another hibah in Islamic banking product. The third product is card contract, or we call it saving account, has become one of use of hibah as a banking contract in Malaysian Islamic banks. Card contract is a trade ownership of exchangeable assets to a party to which it is official to return wealth similar to it. The aim of card contract is to provide wealth or assets on loan to anyone who will profit from this act. By accepting this bid, the recipient party hires it and uses it for its own reason before returning the equivalent interest. The depositor is regarded as a loan to the bank in the card structure used by Islamic banks, and the bank guarantees the depositor even though the bank is negligent or lose wealth. If the depositors collect hibah from the bank as a lender in the situation. on the condition that this practice, giving hibah, does not become normal and similar to a situation in a card-based contract. The SAC resolution refers to it as permissible. And the last hibah in Islamic banking product is conditional hibah, or we'll call it hibah mu'allaqah. Okay, according to this definition, a conditional hibah is a grant that is contingent on the occurrence of a certain event. Grants are only given out when the conditions are met. There is some scholar that regards to condition hibah. Hibah for any future terms or condition is invalid according to Shafi'i scholars, a view from Hanbali scholars and Zahiri. Hibah may be a deal that would end up being invalid due to ignorance. As a result, hibah must be absolute to a future event and normally comparable to the limitation of a contractual selling agreement to a future event. Hibah, which is conditional on conditions, is null since hibah is a grant of possession, transfer of property to a single recipient in his lifetime. So, hibah cannot be conditional like a contract of sale, which cannot be conditional. There is some product that operate using conditional hibah is Sahabat Agro by Agro Bank. The Sahabat Agro instrument is a marketing program offered by Agro Bank Malaysia for the Agro Prima S, commodity that employs the saving, referral and gain reward model. This product uses the Sharia principle of conditional hibah, or we call it hibah mu'allaqah, in which a payment or grant is offered to a member who follows the bank's terms and conditions. This commodity is offered by Agrobank after being approved by the bank's Sharia advisor in terms of requirements and operations.
In conclusion, hibah is a form of Sharia contract that is used to fund major Sharia contracts in Malaysian Islamic banking and financial system. The use of hibah in Islamic banking product is all about offering an incentive for customers to pay their monthly rent according to the prescribed plan or as a form of gratitude for their confidence in the institutions. Hibah has been used in products based on the contracts of Wadiah Yad Al-Damanah, Al-Qard, and Al-Ijara Tuma Al-Bay. According to current Islamic banking practice in Malaysia, while the application of hibah mu'allaqah, known as conditional hibah in Islamic finance, hibah retain many Islamic characteristics in terms of avoiding interruptions in property distribution processes, but there are still disagreements and debates on this subject. In general, most contemporary scholars agree that such practices are permissible as long as they do not violate the original hibah principle. So that's all for our group. Thank you.